Speak now to Cameron Khansarina, who is the Vice President of the National Union for Democracy in Iran. I mean, it seems to me, Cameron, that Iran have been very much weakened, that Israel have probably picked the timing of this operation quite critically, knowing that Iranian proxies have been diminished, knowing that they are down on their weaponry and their arms, knowing that Iran was potentially drawing out these talks on a nuclear deal with America in order to buy time, suggesting that Iran was very close to developing nuclear warheads, that this could have happened within a matter of days, and taking the opportunity, I would imagine, to get in there and strike at the heart of the regime's operations to develop nuclear weapons while they could. But how do you think now Iran's going to respond? Could this be a tipping point now, an inflection point, where somehow the public of Iran, who are fed up with the regime, manage to topple it?
Well, thank you very much for having me on the program. And you're exactly right. I mean, first of all, let's call a spade a spade. This is a humiliating defeat for Ali Khamenei, the 30-plus year dictator of Iran. It's not just that the individuals who were eliminated in yesterday's strike by the Israelis were senior Islamic Republic officials. These are very close personal confidants of the supreme leader. Hajizadeh, the head of the regime's air force, Bagheri, who you mentioned, the head of the armed forces, Salami, the head of Khamenei's prized IRGC, really his Praetorian Guard, have all been eliminated. And these individuals do not rise through the ranks of the Islamic Republic's armed forces because they are supreme strategists or military commanders. They rise through the ranks because they are loyal to the regime, and they're personally loyal to Ali Khamenei. And the fact that they were eliminated in the evening, in their homes, in their beds, perhaps, has got to be a huge psychological shock to Ali Khamenei. He himself must be incredibly fearful, incredibly afraid at this very moment, and I imagine incredibly humiliated. And therefore, it's likely that the response will be significant. This first volley of, say, 100 drones that the regime sent to Israel probably will not be the end. His statement was very strong against the Israeli attack, indicating that further responses are coming. But you put your finger right on it with your question about the Iranian people. The Iranian people are often ignored in these conversations, and they are fed up. They're sick and tired of the Islamic Republic. They don't view what happened yesterday as some sort of foreign invasion. They view it as a likely justified retaliation for 46 years of terrorism and chaos and destruction that their really occupying forces of the Islamic Republic have forced on the entire Middle East. And so it's entirely possible that in the coming weeks, as the regime is weaker than it ever has been in history, we see the Iranian people look to take opportunities to take back their country from this regime.
I mean, Khamenei is old, he's isolated, he's extremely out of step with the Iranian public, and yet he seems to have proven to be a pretty hard man to dislodge, given that there has been public uprising in Iran against the regime, particularly from women. One assumes, of course, he is a viable target for Israel to try and strike, but necessary precautions, no doubt, are now being taken by him and his coterie following the fatalities of so many of his allies. How realistic is it that actually the regime in Iran can be toppled, and how realistic is it that it would be replaced by something which the West could recognize as a democratic ally?
I think the likelihood of both of those are very significant. Iran, we don't have to look really into the future or into some sort of seeing eyeglass to see what the future might hold. Iran had very cordial, very productive relations with the West, with the United Kingdom, with Europe, with the United States, and with countries in the Middle East, both Israel and Arab, prior to the Islamic Revolution. Under the Pahlavi dynasty, Iran was a great friend to the West, and the West was a good friend to Iran, but Iran was also able to balance its relations with Eastern powers like Russia and China, and was really a source for stability in the region. And that's why so many Iranians are fed up with this regime. It's not just that they're dissatisfied with the incompetence, with the corruption, with the devastation, with the repression. It's that they can so clearly see what they want their future to be just by looking into their own recent past history. And that's why so many Iranians on the streets across the country in weeks and months past have chanted the name of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince, thinking that those were better days and they can once again have a secular, democratic country that can be at peace with its neighbors, that can be at peace with the world, as opposed to spending billions of dollars on terrorism, on destruction, on devastation, on sowing chaos. Those could be built on building schools, on building roads, on building water irrigation facilities. Iran faces a myriad crises that those billions of dollars of this wealthy country's resources could be spent on solving. And so that's why, because of the dissatisfaction of the people, that this regime is so weak. And I think that if foreign governments, you asked the question, Ali Khamenei has been difficult to dislodge. Part of that reason has been because Western policy, British policy, French policy, American policy, has been so focused on dealing with the Islamic Republic as opposed to dealing with an alternative. And if every time the regime faces a crisis, Western policy is to seek to, tamper down tensions or to find some diplomatic route, that's not going to solve the problem. Nearly half a century has proven that this regime does not want to solve the problems. It is the one causing the problems. And so the way that we can find a lasting solution is by looking for other alternatives. And now is really an inflection point for Western policy on Iran. It's time to look for other solutions, other alternatives, and a fundamental wholesale change of Iran policy that would go beyond this regime. First of all, there will be very few members of the regime left to negotiate with. They're being eliminated, it seems, one by one. And so it's time for folks in Downing Street, in Élysée, and in the White House and others to look for new partners, to look for new solutions to the Iran problem. And I truly believe that the facts bear out, and the people of Iran on the ground seek a future which would be fundamentally different from the Iran that the world has come to know for the past 46 years. Solving the Iran problem would really solve the world's problems as well.
Oh, without a doubt it would, and it'd be lovely to have the sort of values of the former Persian Empire back front and centre again. I mean, is this the case that actually the Ayatollah is pretty old now? I don't know what his health is like, but certainly I can't imagine he's got many years left on the clock, and that this potentially is a waiting game, that if anything happened to him, if he were to meet his demise, then that would be the moment in which the forces that be can seek their opportunity to perhaps return the ancestors of the Shah into power. And has the West essentially, I'm getting from what you were saying, that you think the West has been very weak by trying to essentially negotiate with terrorists who do not have any intention whatsoever of upholding their end of any sort of deal.
That's entirely true. Western policy has really been focused on this fantastical notion of behavior change from this regime, where really the solution is a change of this regime itself, and not a change at the hand of Western barrels of guns or troops or ground invasions. There are millions of boots on the ground in Iran right now, and those are the boots of the Iranian people. They have risen up time and time again. They have sacrificed their own lives. Thousands have been murdered by this brutal dictatorship. The Iranian people are not sitting on the sidelines waiting for a handout, asking Sir Keir or asking President Macron or President Trump to deliver them a free country on a silver platter. They're fighting for it. They're dying for it. Young children, young women, young men are risking their lives for it. And so they're absolutely seeking to take their country back. And when they see that in the face of their sacrifice, the response from the leaders of the democratic world who claim to stand for human rights and democracy is instead to cut deals with a brutal dictatorship that has slaughtered people by the tens of thousands in its 46-year rule, that exports terror as its number one export across the world, that is the number one world state sponsor of terrorism, that has not just as a slogan, but as a policy, death to America, death to Great Britain. When they see that, they sniff hypocrisy in the air. And so it is time for a wholesale change. And as to what the future of Iran might look like, that will be determined by the Iranian people. As we have seen, there are chants across the country for the exiled crown prince, for the Pahlavi dynasty. But what's quite unique in this moment is that you have a person like the crown prince, who is really a leader for millions of people inside the country, whose response is not to say that, yes, it will be me, I will do it alone. It is to say that I'm here to lead this transition to secular democracy, to be a bridge to a brighter future. And the destination of that future will be determined by the Iranian people in free and fair elections and in a nationwide referendum. So we're not here to predetermine any outcomes. We're here to help the Iranian people to determine their own destiny, the outcome of which they will establish at the ballot box.
Cameron, thank you ever so much. That's Cameron Khansarina, Vice President of the National Union for Democracy in Iran. It'd be nice to get democracy back in Iran. And he's absolutely right, you know. If you could deal with a problem like Iran, the biggest global sponsor of terrorism, the people who are also sending weaponry over to Russia and prolonging that brutal war of attrition in Ukraine, the people funding all of these terrorist enterprises, and the Houthis to Hezbollah to Hamas,